Welcome to the Orange Hammer Podcast. My name is Corbett Storick. I've been a licensed general contractor for 8+ years, specializing in new construction, renovation, furniture building. I'm the son of an architect and an interior designer, and I've been surrounded in this industry since birth, watching all aspects from concept, design, build, punch list, and of course, all the problems that come up in between. In my time in Durham, North Carolina, I've noticed a significant gap in knowledge between homeowners who need work and the people who do the work. On this podcast, I hope to break down the process of homeownership from the perspective of both the homeowner and the contractor in an effort to help raise the knowledge of homeowners about their homes and the construction/renovation process. I hope you enjoy. If you're enjoying the Orange Hammer Podcast, or if you have a topic that you want covered, or have recently done a project, please contact the Orange Hammer Podcast. The Orange Hammer Podcast is on Instagram and Facebook. Please like and subscribe, share on whatever platform you're enjoying your podcast on. Also, check out our YouTube channel, The Orange Hammer. The Orange Hammer Podcast is proud to be brought to you by CRS Contracting LLC for all your construction and handyman needs, new buildings to renovations, furniture building, EV charger install, or even a TV mounted. You can call me, Corbett Storick. It'd be my pleasure to help you. You can find me on Instagram at CRS Contracting. WSDG, the Walter Storick Design Group, specialists in architectural and acoustical consulting. Check out WSDG.com. And Taylor Bragg, for all your artistic needs in all mediums. You can find her on Instagram at brag_about_art. That's brag, BRGG, with 2 G's. She's the fantastic artist behind the Orange Hammer logo, and she did my fantastic table painting of my podcasting table. The Orange Hammer Podcast is proud to be brought to you by Stacy Sloan with Keller Williams Elite Realty, proudly serving the Durham and Triangle area for 25 years. Call Stacy at 919-972-1180. The Orange Hammer Podcast is proud to be brought to you by Rachel Z with Rachel Z Real Estate Team Realty. From the Triangle to the Triad, call Rachel Z at 919-323-6068. All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Orange Hammer Podcast. Today I'm here with Dr. Matt Persons. The title today, The Woodworking Chiropractor. So we're just going to jump right in and shout out to Jessica.
Yes.
For just randomly being like, Corb, you two should do a podcast
the
together.
Networking master guru herself.
Yeah. I like casually was like, I would, anybody you could think of. And she texts me probably like every 2 weeks.
I swear like, every time I'm talking with Jessica, she's like, hey, you need to go to this thing or meet this person. She's all over it. She's great.
Yeah. She's at every event that's
she somehow figured out to clone herself somehow. I got to ask her about that one too.
Yeah. She's all over it and I love it. We'll do kind of like a phase 1 and phase 2 here. So phase 1, Doc, chiropractor.
Yes.
Also we're graced by the studio dog, the Willie the Bear is here for some pets. Good boy. Okay. So when did you decide you wanted to be a chiropractor? Mm-hmm. And is that like, do you still go to the standard medical school like everyone else, or is it like a chiropractor specialty school? Like, how does that actually work?
Yeah, great question. So the first part of that, a little bit. There we go. No, you're good. Cool. I'm still getting used to this whole podcast.
No, you're
good. So the first part of that, when I figured out I wanted to become a chiropractor, I was in college. I went to Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia. Did a bachelor's in like exercise science. Thought I was going to be doing the PT thing for a bit. Most people who end up being chiros or other like healthcare related professionals typically come to a fork in the road, and they got options, or they think of something, or they find something else maybe that is more naturally suited to them. I was definitely one of those people. So it came time, like we were finishing up the traditional 4-year education, where we had like this practical like internship scenario where we had to go fulfill to graduate. So I went home a semester early to Hampton Roads, Chesapeake, Virginia area where my folks still live. And
that's a nice area.
It is nice. It's grown a lot. It's a great place to raise a family, so I'm told. So, but yeah, really nice area. But anyway, that was my home since high school, really. still consider that home because that's where they are. But anyway, there was a chiropractor that my mom actually had started going to in the very beginning of when I was in high school, I believe. She was getting adjusted regularly, and I, kind of kept that as in the back burner kind of thought. It was like, hey, I'll check this out if, this PT thing doesn't work out, or, that's not really what I want to do.
PT being physical
therapy.
Physical
yes,
therapy.
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry. Yep.
That's what I thought, but I just wanted to double check.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
It's just, I just find it easier to abbreviate, but that's what it is. Physical therapy. So I had the intention of going to physical therapy school.
Are there specialized care, like categories inside the umbrella of PT?
To my knowledge, yes, you can definitely specialize in certain other fields. I knew a lot of people who had like their undergrad, like BS, and before they went to that next level of education where you can either do like obviously occupational therapy, you can do there's like a cardiac rehab for like people who just had heart attacks after learning how to walk again, that kind of thing. So it really just depends on what you want to do, really. There's lots of different things out there.
Did you think what you wanted to do? Like, did you want to do like sports rehab or like?
That was initially my thought, because I was an athlete for the greater part of my life, for some team sports, some individual stuff.
What'd you play?
I played in a rec league for football, American football, I should say, in high school. Not competitive. We were like a pretty average, just like high school group of guys getting together and just playing football in the league. I then transitioned to more of like an individual sport where I did more long distance running throughout undergrad too. So that was my jam. Just putting my shoes on and kind of hitting the trail and going from there. So I figured that was going to be where my niche or my focus would be. It was was serving athletes with all the different various issues that can come from performing and competing. But basically came to that point or that fork in the road where we had to shadow a couple different people and just check off some boxes and that kind of thing. So I said, all right, I'm going to go shadow a physical therapist in my hometown and also this chiropractor that my folks have been going to.
So you're just like there while they see patients. And
you're
like
shadowing.
watching.
You're literally a fly on the wall. You just kind of soak up whatever they are, okay with you seeing, and observing. So I was just watching.
What are the boundaries that are not okay with them like allowing you to see?
Good question. So it depends on the state and the board like regulations and what they do. So for example, under the chiropractic sphere, until just recently, interns or students were not allowed to adjust patients in their school, or their finishing up of they call it a preceptor. Same thing as an internship essentially. But now recently they have since changed that where they are allowed to do that under pretty consistent supervision and monitored time with the doc or the owner of the clinic. So,
but you could still be in the room
while
he's doing the adjustment.
So long as they're comfortable, like the patient's comfortable with that, and then the head clinician or the doc, whoever owns and operates the clinic, is okay with you doing that. Some people want to have personal one-on-one time with certain meetings with certain patients. Some people it's as long as they're okay with it, you can be there. So
yeah, I guess if the patient above all is okay.
Yeah, that's the the most important thing to make sure everybody's good on.
Because I've never been a patient where that's been what's happening, but I have gone to a chiropractor, and like if he was like, hey, this is a student in training, do you mind? I'd be like, hell yeah, I don't mind.
Yeah,
like,
most people don't care at all. They're like, hey, we're here for it. Do what you need to do.
Yeah, like I don't want him doing it, but if he's just gonna watch, like okay, sure,
all good. You're not paying him to do it. No, I get that.
It's not like that intimate of a thing. At least for just like I haven't had, knock on wood, I haven't had like massive injuries, but I've just gotten like what I would classify as regular chiropractic adjustments.
Yeah, for sure.
And, unfortunately, I will say, and we can maybe talk about this a little in more detail later, because I do want to ask you about this. I was not told by the chiropractors to do the certain things in between the adjustments that would help the adjustments take like better hold of it was very much just like crack shack and come back.
Gotcha.
And I'm sure you're familiar with that term, and they exist obviously. Absolutely. But we can dive into that later.
100%. I definitely have an opinion on that. But back to the original question, I think when I was shadowing, I was checking out the PT, the physical therapist in the hometown, and they were a very different focused clinic. To what extent, I couldn't tell you exactly, because I just never went down that route, obviously. But I knew within the first 30 minutes of being in that clinic, I was like, this is just not what I meant to do. it was just not my thing. It just viscerally knew that was not where I meant to be.
The epiphany happened.
Yes, the light bulb, if you will, was turned on. I was like, yeah, this isn't it. So went to go see another office or another chiropractor, the one that my folks had been to. And then like I knew who he was. He was familiar with who I was as well. So it wasn't like it was a first time, interaction thing. So
that
he
probably
said, hey,
had
come on in.
a better positive effect too.
Definitely, without a doubt. But even still, like so I met him when I was in high school, maybe a sophomore in high school, and then came back when I was a junior, senior in college. So it was at least a good 4 or 5 years or so between when I met him and then when I came back and observed him in a official capacity of some nature. So,
but your mom was doing regular visits.
She was the first one in our family. Yeah, my dad ended up following suit as well, and so did the rest of my family, which we'll get into here for sure. But anyway, so I went to go visit this guy. I had to like fulfill a certain number of hours, but the first thing he had me do was like, hey, come check out this x-ray. And he just kind of go into the ins and outs of what he did and what he was looking at. And I love that. So it was, from a very young age as well, young being again, high school age, figured out that I had a knack for just human anatomy, how the body worked, everything's that, how we were created to perform what our bodies are capable of. It was just very interesting to me. So
it is very fascinating.
It is. And we really, even the more you get into it, we find out the more we don't know about it. And we're continuing to, understand and learn new things that, just from really just trial and error, comes to be, this is what we understand now. Let's, see if that changes really. Or our understanding may change. But anyway, yeah, so he showed me the ins and outs of what he does. I watched and observed for about a week or so before I had to go back to school and do some other things before I graduated. And he said, hey, if you're serious about this thing, check out this school over here in South Carolina. My alma mater for grad school is Sherman College of Chiropractic in Spartanburg, Boiling Springs area of South Carolina. He went to another school and told me to go to this one because he said if he was to do it over again, he would recommend this one, which is a whole nother conversation itself. But very, very balanced as far as the different things that make up a good, balanced chiropractic education. So kind of moving now into, I guess, the second part of your question, it's not a traditional medical school. It's very, very similar as far as the requirements that we go through as far as learning in the classes and the board exams and stuff like that. Our focus is more on radiology. We have a lot more like diagnostic training as well. We don't do anything with medications or like anything medicinal related, really. There's other things that you can dive into after the fact if you want to get into like IV injections or like supplements, that kind of stuff. Like you have to do more training and other things like that. But
have you done or explored any of those avenues?
Not officially yet. I definitely have an interest to.
Sure.
It's something we want to add in our practice and bring on other people who are required to do that or perform those things at some point. But really, to the extent to just continue to promote health and wellness of everybody that comes through our doors. That's really the main focus on our business card and on our sign. We have a little slogan: "The health is freedom," and that's one of the main core values that you could say makes up our office. Yeah, that was it. If that answers that second question, we do. It's a 4 or 5 year curriculum crammed in about 3.5 years of school, nonstop.
This is on top of your regular undergrad.
On top of regular undergrad, yeah. Correct. So it was a 3.5 year consistently in sequence that we didn't have. The longest break we had was a 3-week long break in the summer and the winter. But it was a year-long program, and the clinical stuff is baked into that as well, with more observation and stuff afterwards before we become licensed, go out into the world and do the thing. But yeah, that's the extent of the education. We have lots of different hours of school. It's a nauseating amount of school that we had to go through. 5 different board exams. We call it, different schools call it different things. For clinic, some people call it entrance and exit exams. Some people call them OSCEs, just a different thing, just a different assessment to make sure that you meet all the criteria to be able to go into the clinic and see either student patients or like local residents who get chiropractic care at the local school. And that's kind of how you dip your toe in the water of treating patients, so to say. So that's essentially the Cliff Notes version of.
Okay, what's one of those chiropractic like tables cost?
Depends on the table. So
They look expensive.
They can be. They certainly can be. So the traditional tables that, I mean, the only ones that I know much about is the ones that we use. They're pretty basic. You or I with a rudimentary or even more advanced understanding of woodworking and upholstery could make one of the tables that we use, just because the simpler ones are very simple. It's plywood, it's metal frames, brackets, that kind of thing, with some cushioning and stuff to get you what you need to do. We do have a more advanced, like a hydraulic system in one of our tables that's allows for more like disabled patients or more challenged patients with other different issues to be able to be adjusted easier on the table. That's nothing I want to dabble with or really worry about, so I leave that to the people who make those. But they can range anywhere between, you can find them on Facebook for people who are getting rid of them for a couple $100 for a set or whatever, and they can range up to, I mean, 10 grand and something like that. Depends on the table. So,
all right, fair enough. Yeah, I guess it depends on if you want to be the celebrity chiropractor.
This is true. Then you get all the bells and whistles, all the gadgets, the hammers and the chisels. I think there's a guy comes to mind. I think his name's Dr. Bu Hightower. I think he's out in LA, I want to say.
I mean, that's where he would be.
Yeah, one of the main hubs for sure. Anyway, but
the chiropractor that my family and I would go see a lot in New York, he has since passed away, unfortunately, but he also had whatever certs needed to sell like vitamins and supplements. He had tons of them. And I, as a kid, the holistic view of life that he was giving to my mom and then therefore our family, because my mom was in charge of all of the family.
Most ladies are. That's I think they're 80% of the healthcare deciders in most people's household. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it's 100% in our household because my dad is like so, and my mom does all the cooking, other than like the very little grilling my dad does. Fair enough. But like as a kid, this is hippie BS.
Mm-hmm.
Completely didn't. Like this was like alternative to the correct medicine.
Yeah.
And by the way, like this is incorrect thinking. This is me as a kid. Like,
sure.
And now it's like complete 180 of realizing that the standard westernized medical world, like, yes, it's incredible. You can't deny the things that they create and help.
Yes. Great emergency, great trauma care system.
Absolutely.
Unparalleled.
Yeah, 100%. But the older I get, personally, the more I kind of realize, at least in my opinion, that like the country's view of health is kind of like pay almost no attention to what you're doing to yourself.
Yes.
And then get sick.
Right. And then react to the
fact
that I'm
react
sick now.
to your sickness with
try all the things.
A big pharma pill solution.
Yeah.
And I'm also not going to sit here and be like, go to a chiropractor. It's the solution to like all your problems. But
fair.
But there's definitely some validity to like, okay, maybe like using the holistic approach of really thinking more about how the body functions and what fuel the body needs.
Sure.
To not ever get to that sick point where you need the pill regularly is probably the better move.
I would agree with you.
Like that pill is definitely like, I'm glad it's there because like some people have genetic defects and they could be the healthiest person in the world and there's only so much you could do.
Exactly.
Like, or and that's out there. There's no denying that that's out there. But if like, especially when you start reading labels on what's not on the perimeter of the grocery store, like all those inner aisles.
It's almost like you have to learn a new language, I feel like.
Once
you don't even understand.
Once you realize how many oils are bad for you you start reading how everything is made with the bad oils, you just realize like, okay, I can't buy this. Like I just need to go make a different version with only like olive oil or canola oil.
I love to stick with a shopping list of very limited ingredient list. Most of the things are just one ingredient and it's the thing that it is, like
like tomato is tomato, broccoli
red meat or whatever it is, so
there's a trainer, Vinny something with a T that I can't remember. He's like famous on Instagram, and that's like his saying too. He's
Yeah.
like, when you shop, it should be like
Whole Foods.
Steak is steak,
Keep it
avocado
simple.
is avocado.
Yes,
like
exactly.
if you're going to buy something in a box with 70 ingredients and you don't know what 30 of them are,
Yeah,
they're
might
probably
be
bad.
problematic. Yeah,
Yeah.
One of my biochem professors in grad school, she would say, if it didn't come from the ground, or if it wasn't naturally made, or if you can make it yourself with a couple of ingredients that are also just singular ingredients to make up that thing, it's like you probably should just stick with that. You're going to be healthier than 99% of the people in the world.
And I am very new to like this kind of health journey. It's like 5 weeks in, but I feel the difference already. And then also I've in very limited experimentation made homemade versions that are healthier and taste better. The best example I have is hummus.
Yeah.
And I actually did hunt for some relatively healthy hummus with no added sugar and whatever. But still, it had, I think it was sunflower oil or canola oil, one of the wrong types of oils. Because again, like if it's not olive or avocado or coconut, every other oil is not good for you.
Yeah, beef tallow and ghee are also great options as well.
Fantastic. Yeah. But those are not as regular, I will say.
It depends on the store you go to, but I mean they're less known about. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. But then like making my own hummus, it's 6 ingredients. Roast that garlic ahead of time. Like,
so
oh my
YouTube
God,
video and a couple ingredients.
I didn't need a YouTube video. I Googled
a
a recipe that just told me add the water last and it'll be fluffy. And I was
perfect.
like, okay, fluffy hummus, let's go. But like fresh lime juice, fresh chickpeas. Like I didn't have fresh chickpeas. I had to get a can, but still, like it was just the chickpeas.
It's not rocket surgery. Yeah, it's fine.
And so much healthier, and it tastes better. And it's just like it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be as complicated as like, whatever the equivalent to big pharma is. That's like big Pepsi Cola or big Food Inc. Like that they put out the narrative that it's too complicated to go buy the garbage, and it's just not true.
I think also you even kind of touched on this earlier, where there's a lot of people want instant gratification, or they want they want to react to the problem that may arise later on if they don't prioritize or are more proactive with anything that happens. And health is no different.
It's true.
We live in a 2-day Amazon shipping world that, instant gratification is everywhere we turn.
We want 30-second rice.
You have, all the things at your fingertips in your pocket that used to take up an entire room before. I mean, it's amazing how much technology and everything else has come. But I think when it comes down to it, have you seen the show Yellowstone?
Yeah, big fan.
Yeah, so there was a scene that I often think about. I forget, it was the 1923, one of the prequels or the
the spin-offs.
Yeah, the spin-off. So it was one of the sons of the family. They were like in town for like their night out or whatever, and then this guy on the streets like trying to sell the ladies like a washing machine or a refrigerator or something like that. Very early on, model, very, foreign to what we're even familiar with nowadays. And he tells people what it does, and they like laugh at him. Like that's not a thing. We don't know about that. And then he goes, but it could be. And like, this is a new modern convenience that it is now available to people if you so choose to, partake in that. And then the guy is, he says like, well, you're the one who makes the appliances, right? But you also supply the electricity that it needs to run. So like, it's convenient, but it changes the way of life that we know beforehand. And then who knows what's going to happen after that. So I'm paraphrasing, but he basically calls him out. He's like, it may not necessarily be all about convenience. And that's kind of the point I think I'm coming around to, where it's like, take more initiative or take more ownership in the things that you consume, that you focus on in a daily, routine, whether that's work, home, whatever. And more than likely you can improve some facet of your life, your quality of life, and really go from there. But making your own hummus instead of buying it is a great example of doing something small.
Meal prepping in general.
Meal prepping is a
preach
fantastic
that big.
Thing. Yes.
Yeah, it saved me from becoming like a 500-pound obese human being.
Right, and it's easy to do nowadays too.
Yeah.
Like, and if because we are all busy, we all have stuff going on. We never have enough minutes in the day, I feel like, especially as a small business owner. I'm sure you can relate.
Yeah, but use that 2-day shipping from Amazon to get you a set of Pyrex containers.
Sure,
and just
it's
put
a great
6
tool.
of them in the freezer.
Just don't rely on it for everything. You know, 100%.
Yeah, it's but for those who think it's I don't know how to do that, you can figure that out.
It's not hard.
Yeah.
It's not difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, make your favorite meal that's not, something incredibly unhealthy. Times it by 6,
Right.
cook it all,
And you're
portion
good
it
for a
out,
week,
freeze
if
4
not
of them.
longer.
Like, it's not that hard,
Yeah.
It's easy.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so how many... Well, first of all, where are you guys located? Where's your office?
So our office is, we're in the northwest Raleigh area, about 10 minutes down Glenwood from the airport, off of Durley Road, between Glenwood and Edwards Mill.
Yeah.
If anybody else listening knows that area better than when I try to explain it to.
Listening.
No? Okay.
No.
Well, those who are, it's Durley Road. There's a quarry on that road. If you're familiar with that, we're so close to that quarry, we can feel the blast when they actually mine for the rock. So it's kind of a cool, like, weird
vibrating
thing.
Your spines.
Yeah,
to the
well,
point
the
of
entire building.
Adjustment.
So it's like earthquake. Oh man, what do we got to do now? Duck and cover kind of thing. No, yeah, that's where we're at in the northwest Raleigh area. Yep.
How many? Are you the only chiropractor who could adjust people? Do you have other chiropractors?
So it's me and my wife. Yeah, so me and my wife.
Is she a chiropractor as well?
She is a chiropractor as well.
Okay.
So she is more so taking a role of like an admin kind of office manager position right now as we're figuring out the ins and outs of running an office.
Okay.
It was very important to make sure we defined our roles so that we weren't stepping on each other's toes, which we were doing a lot of in the first few months. But I'm the main... I guess you could say like clinical director or like the main practitioner there right now doing the adjusting and the patient care. She comes in a couple days a week and helps me make sure that I'm not falling behind or missing other things, scanning documents when they need to be scanned, all the stuff that needs to happen to run a successful business. So, but yeah, it's me and her and our office greeter Maverick, the 1.5-year-old Labradoodle. So.
Oh, that's important.
It is.
Yeah,
He's arguably the most important part. He has way more Google reviews than my wife does, and she laughs about that, but I think that bothers her a little bit. So.
Well, but those are good positive reviews.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He's the star of the show.
Person walks in with back pain. Oh, dog made me feel better.
Star of the
left
show.
Without pain.
He has a way with people that neither of us could have. Yeah. So it's a great.
You met the studio dog.
Yeah.
There's a reason. Yeah. He's around for just that purpose.
Yeah, he's awesome.
How many rooms and tables do you have?
Yeah, so right now I have 3 rooms that I will adjust out of. Our space is like 1,100 square feet, something like that.
Okay.
We have a exam and X-ray room. We do X-rays in house for
Oh, really?
stuff. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. It's just a lot more convenience for folks instead of having to get referred somewhere for
both chiropractors I've been to did not have that in house. So
yeah,
it's
pretty common. I don't understand why people don't want to use those, and that's a whole nother. We can
well,
get
it's
into
expensive.
That it is absolutely
machine.
expensive. It's
that
a huge component of overhead.
I think
absolutely.
and also the space to physically put that machine.
Yeah,
like it's not.
It depends on the size you're looking for.
They're not massive, obviously. The one you have compared to like the one that maybe like a huge hospital like UNC has, but still, it definitely takes up some square footage. Like this dude in New York, he had no space for it physically. Gotcha. Like he had 3 tiny rooms. He had a tiny waiting room, a lady with desk, all the supplements, and like that. He barely had room for the water cooler thing. Yeah. So there would have just been no room
for sure.
But also, we lived 15 minutes away from 2 world-renowned hospitals in
so you
Poughkeepsie,
have
New
access
York.
where you need.
Yeah, so he was like, just go to Vassar or St. Francis and get an X-ray.
That's
real quick.
different. Yeah. I more so. I think I'm talking about when you're trying to be as specific and as professional as a chiropractor as you are hoping to be, which is my intent. Why more chiropractors don't have either easier access or in-house capabilities of taking X-rays when they need it, because stuff happens and people get in accidents and they need to know. Whereas some people can't get a hold of their primary or even a referral to get an X-ray for like maybe up to 6 months. It depends on the person. But anyway, so we have an X-ray room, exam room where we do all the analysis and we see what's going on. We figure out if we can help them. We have some.
So I'm obviously not as educated on the human body as you are, but like as a chiropractor. You're not fixing some stuff you see in an X-ray. Like you're not setting a broken bone. You can't do that.
No, and you even said this too. Like it definitely, most people don't trust chiropractors, and there's a long-standing history that goes into that, which we can get into later if we want. But there's good reason for skepticism, I think, because there's a lot of different flavors out there of chiropractors, a lot of crazy stuff on the internet that people either want to try or like don't even think about trying that with me. So there's a lot of different the ways to perform and actually make an adjustment. Different schools teach it different ways. They have different focuses, different things you can study. So
could you give an example of maybe like something that you could see on an X-ray? Like if somebody had an accident and then they come to you, like what are you going to see on an X-ray that you could actually do versus something you're going to see on an X-ray and be like, oh, you need to go to like a real hospital.
Sure.
Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Because in my head, which obviously is not as intelligent on this subject as your head, which is why I'm asking you the question, like anything real bad you would see on an X-ray be like, oh, that's a slip disc. I can't help you. You need to go to a hospital, or you broke your arm or something, like whatever.
Sure.
Whatever you might think is not a big deal is actually a big deal, and this X-ray just proved it. So let's upload that to my chart so you can just go to UNC or wherever you're, whatever the example, UNC or Duke are the close ones here. But like, so are you seeing something? Obviously not a break because you're not prepared to deal with something like that, but something minimal where something maybe is just displaced or.
Yeah, so it really depends on the focus or the technique or the method that it's used in the office. My wife and I are Gonstead chiropractors, and there's a lot that goes into that. But essentially, what we use X-ray for is first and foremost to rule out any kind of history of any, if it's current, whether it was a recent fracture or something like that. We obviously can't work with that. We can work around it, but that's negligent to try to address that as a chiropractor. That's just not within our scope of practice.
Okay.
So
something might be healed, but you can see on the X-ray like that was only 8 months ago. We can't adjust that.
If it's completely healed, we can typically work with it. Just it depends on what it is. I
meant healed, like healed as in like you don't need a brace or whatever, but it's fresh enough on the X-ray that like we're not gonna.
There's
we can't touch
X-ray
that.
shows a lot of different things that are going on. We were trained, like I said, a lot of our background is really focused on radiology, so we know what normal is, and we're not able to diagnose via like just X-rays to say like, hey, you have cancer or you have this X, Y, and Z thing. Like that's just not, because we don't treat that. That's not something that I have the ability to professionally say, hey,
for sure,
this is what you have definitively. I typically will know whether that's the case or not. I just don't say it. I just say, hey, Corbett, we found something on your films that's not normal or not regular. I really need you to go see your primary care physician soon and have them address that with you. I'm happy to send you a set of these X-rays so they can look at it together, or they can take their own, whatever needs to happen. But if it's something outside of my scope, that's usually how the conversation goes. But we use it for a very structured, very specific analytical approach to the care that we render for our patients in our office. So as Gonstead chiropractors, that's a technique that has been around for a very long time. It is world-renowned, taught in most of all the schools that are still focusing on chiropractic itself. I only say that because some are moving towards the medical model and doing more non-chiropractic related stuff. That's a whole other conversation as well. But for here and now, it's a very specific way to know what's going on underneath the hood, if you will. So there's a phrase that we talk about a lot with our patients is to see is to know, not to see is to guess. And I don't like to guess with your health. And I definitely don't want to guess with my reputation either, but it just helps us be extra specific to know what's going on. You don't have to have pain or any other, like the main causes for me to warrant taking an X-ray, at least in my office, because it's my license on the line. So I'm going to take the picture. It's and with technology, how far it's come, the exposure that you get, if you're worried about that, is so minimal. You get more radiation exposure watching TV for 2 hours or flying from New York to LA, and nowadays from an X-ray or a set of X-rays. But anyway, so we do full spine X-rays. We do from 2 different views to see what's going on, how the spine is aligned or not aligned. We also take another series of X-rays called a motion study within our office, and it helps us to know in certain areas, typically the neck and the low back, how the bones are moving, how they're stuck. So I know how to adjust them, because you even said this before, a rack 'em crack 'em office where you come in, you get adjusted, and then you come back when you feel it again. That's not what we do. We're very, very tailored, just very specific office in what we try to accomplish for each person based on what their goals are. So it could be they want to be out of pain. They could be wanting to pick up their grandkids to play for however long they have left on this earth. It could be a lot of different things, but we really try to figure out what's the main thing you're trying to accomplish. How can we help you get there? And we use all these different tools in addition to X-rays to help us get there.
So since we've brought it up like 3 times now, the rack and crack 'em, there's definitely is like that exists. And that is definitely,
yes.
Like bad contractors kill my rep, that
Yes.
kills your rep.
Yes.
And like for those who have no idea, maybe have no idea what we're talking about, like, there are chiropractors out there that are happy to schedule you for, I don't even know how much it costs, a $75 adjustment, $50 adjustment, whatever.
It depends on the area. That's pretty standard.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
I mean,
And
a little high maybe for most folks, but yeah.
And it's like, you could fill up one sheet of medical equipment or a medical information piece of paper and get, your neck cracked both directions, your back pushed on and cracked, and he'll like, throw one leg over one side and crack your back and then the other way. And he might, pull your ankles, and he'll do like the stand, like it'll feel great. It will feel amazing.
Yeah.
But it like isn't going to really, at least as far as the like, general opinion on why the bad rep is there, is that unless that chiropractor is also doing more kind of your style of understanding why you're here, and then giving you homework in the form of stretching, exercises, maybe a third category I can't think of, but potentially, if you need to like lose some weight, there might be like some sort of nutritional something.
Lots of offices do have weight loss programs, and that's perfectly within our spectrum to work with, as long as you have like a basic understanding of nutrition and that kind of thing. But
because in an ideal world, you're trying to get rid of clients. You're trying to like give them the tools to fix it with a like fixed number of sessions, and then also give them the tools to, okay, now don't train that part of your body because you're weak there and you want to do that thing. So this is how you do it. Yeah. And if you follow that, you potentially might not have to keep coming back every 2 weeks or however often.
That's the goal.
What's an average turnaround?
It depends on the person. It depends on their situation they come in with, how long they've been dealing with it for. But for example, here, a healthy young person around our age could get away with 12 to 24 visits, depending on the situation of their spine. It really just depends on what they want to achieve. Again, if they just want to get out of pain, it typically doesn't take a ton of time. It, again, depends on the history, depends on other things that go into it. But if you're just trying to get out of pain, that typically resolves fairly quickly within a couple months. If you're looking for like long-term optimization, health, just increased quality of life, that kind of thing. More consistent, less often care is typically what most offices will recommend in the form of what's called maintenance or wellness care is another term that people will use. It just depends on what you're trying to get out of it or what your goals are.
Do you recommend that like anybody who is in no pain still go to a chiropractor?
Absolutely. There's another phrase or another idiom, I guess you could say, in our profession. There's two great times to start or get adjusted for the first time. That's at birth and then right now. So at birth is sometimes people are like, what do you mean? Like when they're still infants and toddlers? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So the main thing that we focus on or we treat is a fancy SAT word phrase called a vertebral subluxation. That's essentially a partial dislocation in a joint, primarily focused in your spine or a movable joint that we can address where an adjustment is warranted. Now, the typical thing that we see those subluxations are caused by is we call them the 3 T's, or our body's inability to adapt to those 3 T's. That's thoughts, traumas, and toxins. So that's physical trauma, car accident, sports injury, whatever else have you. It could be thoughts, autosuggestion, mental stress, lots of pressure from works, deadlines, deaths in the family, like other things that are just negative weighing on our emotions. And then toxins. So that could be everything from lots of medication to poor food quality to even poor air quality. It all impacts the nervous system as a whole and causes our body to basically regulation of the nervous system in its purest form to not be where it needs to be, if that makes sense. So
it makes perfect. To me, it makes perfect sense. Some listeners who were expecting a construction podcast are like, I don't understand what this is.
A little more than that.
Yeah,
sure.
But no, it does make perfect sense, and that's kind of what I was touching on back at the beginning when I was talking about the grocery store. That the holistic approach is. It is the only approach. Like Western medicine is great and it should be part of it, but to rely on it as the entire approach,
foolish, in my opinion.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, there's a time and place for it. There's, everybody, of course, the chiropractor is going to be skeptical of things out there. wouldn't disagree with that. I think everybody should be, especially if you're going to take ownership of your own health. But no doctor, no food, no anything else is going to make you healthy. That's entirely your responsibility. Using other, professionals to help you get there is absolutely an awesome plus we have of living in a country like this, and all the resources that we have, at our disposal is fantastic.
It is incredible.
It is truly.
It's hard to deny that, but still, it's still self-ownership that can't
100%.
be denied.
It always comes back down to that. But you're exactly right with the model. Like our focus is always to see people less, because that means they're doing better, and they're to some extent, we always do want to make sure that we can keep you there and make sure that you are staying healthy, which is why maintenance care or very periodic adjustments are always something that we'll recommend, because life doesn't ever stop happening to us or around us. We don't ever not have stress to some capacity in our lives.
So if you were, I don't know, use me as an example.
Sure.
I'm 32.
Yep.
I lift weights 4 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a little extra weight around the belly, but I'm not in any pain.
Sure.
So how often would you recommend somebody like me were to get an adjustment? Because it would be under the maintenance category, because I'm
more than likely.
I'm not fighting something specific.
Yeah. Most offices would typically start you at maybe 2 or 3 times a week at the most.
2 or 3 times a week. Oh, wow.
If in severe cases, maybe. So I'm sorry, you said to use your example. I would say maybe once or twice a week, or very, very short amount of time, and then go to every other week. So maybe twice a month at the very least. Some people do once a month. Again, it really just depends. But in your situation, I would say probably once or every other week would be great to start with. If you're not in any kind of immediate concern, or you don't have anything you're trying to address right away. It's different in our office because we take more time to figure out what the root cause of the issue is, and that may warrant more care depending on the other experiences that you've had before. So
you might not be the right office for somebody just looking for maintenance, because you're really you're the person where somebody's got a problem, they go to you so you can figure it out.
I would say we do both. So if you're looking for consistent care, we're absolutely the office to be able to do that for you. But we also don't shy away from acute injuries or traumas that are causing, dysfunction in the body to whatever extent that may manifest. We absolutely do both of those things too. We see kiddos, we see babies, because the first trauma of the, being alive really starts from childbirth, because it's traumatic for mom and baby. If you've even watched or, mustered up the courage to try and watch a delivery video, because we had to in school, it's they are literally pulling, cranking, twisting the neck and head of that, young individual coming into this world to a very, it's a kind of, is that normal kind of degree?
Probably not.
Yeah, exactly right. But that amount of physical stress itself, inherently puts a lot of stress on the neck area. So a lot of the problems that we see that babies will deal with, like colic, inability, issue digesting stuff like constipation are the common ones, not being able to sleep well, other things that develop but they can't tell us because they obviously can't talk yet, come from those typical first life experiences of being born and other stresses that they are born into. So but anyway, coming back to the question you said, it really just depends on the person and the office and what their focus is on how often would be recommended to be seen or treated or cared for. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what's an average? What's it cost to get adjusted?
So again, it depends on the area. I've seen people there's franchises out there that.
What do you guys charge?
Our rate for just an adjustment is $60. We don't do pay per visit just because there's one adjustment. It's not going to fix anything. Just like one meal that you plan or prep is not going to get you healthy. One visit to the gym is not going to get you a 6-pack, that kind of thing. So we try to focus on the long-term goal or effect, regardless of what your goals may be. If you're wanting to look for a quick fix, that's definitely where we say hey, we're not the office for you, just because we want to be in this for the long run, as long as that's what you're looking for. But that's typically what if you break it down, that's what our cost per visit. Usually, it's $60 to $80, depending on the other stuff that we use as well. Some people in other parts of the country,
people to sign up for a longer plan, you're going to come.
That's typically where we see the most results.
Something like that.
Yeah, just because it and people, there's a lot of stigma around there. It's if I'm not in pain, I don't need to go see a chiropractor. It's I would argue against that, because, if again, you're waiting for yourself to be in pain, you're reacting to a situation, you could have avoided the in the whole to begin with, right?
Yeah.
So,
and you could be really fit, and a chiropractor could be like, "Hey, man, you're not in pain, but if you did like a little less of this one muscle and a little more of this muscle, we're starting to see that you're slipping that direction.
Sure.
So you want to just like now's the time to correct that
Mhm.
before you have to come to me because you're in pain and you've done too much
I wish more people
damage."
talk to their patients like that, but it's
Yeah.
usually a pain-based model because that's how most of us are educated. There's a lot of like old school docs out there that are like, they get adjustments like, hey, come see me back in 2 weeks or whatever. There's not much structure to it, which is typically what we like to use because it helps us know where you are, you know, what kind of progress you've seen, how what we're doing is helping you or not helping you, so we know what to do differently.
There's also a cost effect for sure.
100%.
The average person does not just have that money.
Absolutely.
$60 every other week, or you said sometimes 2 to 3 times a week. I mean, that adds up for somebody
Absolutely.
living paycheck to paycheck. This is
sure.
not an option.
That's true.
Yeah. Does insurance work with chiropractors? Like, or is that separated?
Yeah, so that's a great, really common question we get as well. So insurance depends on the provider. They typically will cover a certain amount of visits per year. It depends on the provider. I've seen people get up to as far as like 150 visits per week, or excuse me, per year that they get covered for like a private company insurance that is, you know, that is offered
That's
to
some
their
gold
clients.
star stuff.
I've never seen anything like it, to be honest. Like it's a, I think the company's Epic Games of one of our patients. That's that.
Oh,
offers that
Epic
kind
and
of
Apex.
Yeah,
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 100%.
My boy Grant works for them.
Gotcha.
I don't know if he has the gold star insurance, but
I don't
I'm gonna
know.
ask
I
him.
don't know.
And
It's-
if he
it's
does,
pretty
I'm gonna
great
tell him to
stuff.
go to you because it's all covered.
Right. But most insurance providers, yeah, sometimes won't cover as much as like 12 visits, and people most of the time need more than just 12 visits to do whatever it is that you're trying to do.
But that's still, if you're talking 12 visits though in a year, that's once a month. So if you go twice a month, that's half off. If you look at,
Essentially, yeah.
there's a perspective where now it could be possible,
Yep.
especially like if it really could help. And
Sure.
for depending on your pain, I mean, I don't know what's happening in anybody's life, and I'm not a medical person, but if you got lower back pain, especially, I would say chiropractic is a great move.
It's
And-
undoubted that,
and,
I mean, that's
and some ab work is also probably going to
sure.
help that.
Core
out.
stabilization is always great for everybody, but it's undeniable that chiropractic gets great results with neck, low back, and neck, low back pain, and like headaches and stuff. That's undeniable.
Headaches.
Yeah. 100%.
Interesting. Okay. So as a chiropractor who just loves the holistic approach and is trying to help, in general, people to be healthy, what are the like top things in general that you would tell people listening to do to alter their health in a positive way? Like some little things that people could do.
Yeah, absolutely. So most of our patients are typically office professionals. They're usually sitting for a long time or traveling a lot for work, for trips and conferences and meetings and stuff like that. Excuse me. I would typically say the main three things that we tell our patients to do after an adjustment or just in general, just to be healthier, is to drink half your body weight in ounces of water a day. So if you weigh 100 pounds, you want to drink 50 ounces of water for easy math, and apply that to whatever your situation is. We always tell people to walk immediately after the adjustment, just because it helps your body to respond well to that, better than just to go back and sit on the lazy boy at home or go back to the office chair.
I've heard walking after a meal for just like 1,000 steps is really good for your digestion.
Fantastic for your digestion. It just helps regulate all the different hormones and stuff that helps with moving everything where it needs to go. That's absolutely a great benefit for sure, just from the digestion standpoint. But even just a motion biomechanical standpoint, that's hugely beneficial for something that's been adjusted or moved from a position that it used to be in, where your body is now, the fancy term for it is imbibing or imbibition of that joint, trying to pump more fluid or more space into that already stressed joint that's putting pressure on a nerve, that causing the problems or dysfunction that you have. But walking is a great way to do that.
So you should come over and give me an adjustment right before I work out. So it's just max blood into all the joints.
I wouldn't necessarily you definitely could. It wouldn't be a problem, but it doesn't necessarily need to you don't always have to have that before you get a workout. But consistency is always the biggest thing with anything. And I think that
just like the gym and the food.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
For sure.
100%. So walking, drinking lots of water. If for whatever reason you're one that's dealing with a chronic issue, ice instead of heat is typically a better route initially to start with, just because heat or topical application of heat, like hot packs, icy hot, whatever else may be, typically brings more blood flow to that area, which makes you feel good, but it also ups the inflammation, the swelling component around that injured area in whatever situation you're dealing with. Ice typically does the opposite and helps speed up the recovery process. There's research out there that shows that initial application of ice isn't as impactful or helpful as it's been talked about in before, but in the immediate application of what we do, we find that really helps people respond well or recover after an adjustment. So that's what we typically tell people to do. Ergonomic stuff is huge for people who sit a lot. I always am a big fan of standing desks, being able to incorporate some kind of walk, whether that's around your home, around your neighborhood. If you're able to afford like one of those like portable treadmills that you can put with your standing desk, that's a fantastic investment in your health. But being able to, move around and work in different positions, even if you're stuck to a cubicle or, say confined to like a really, really restricted office space, being able to just move in your designated work area, whether that's sitting, standing, kneeling, switching from one leg to the other, kneeling kind of thing. You just want to listen to your body whenever you feel like achy or stiff. That's your body saying, hey, get up and move, like your Apple Watch telling you to get up and do something. Just want to be able to give your body access to do that. That's the initial thing that I would say anybody who wants to just do something now to try to help work on that. That's usually a really good place to start. If you still have problems after that, there may be a biomechanical problem. And that's when, we would say you're always welcome to come see us, but that might be like waiting till you're dehydrated to drink water. Like you don't want to always wait till you're in pain or you have another problem before you see somebody, regardless of what your situation is. Yep.
Yeah, it's like every time I get a cramp, I go drink water. It's like damage was done.
Salt and water is a
Yeah.
great solution for muscle cramps, 100%.
Yeah, but I needed to drink water 8 hours ago.
Yeah,
like that
exactly
cramp,
right.
it's not gonna work
Exactly right.
in 5 minutes. It's not.
Exactly.
It doesn't work that way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so completely switching gears to the woodworking side.
Yeah.
Okay, that's got to hurt the lower back.
Absolutely. I'm lucky and fortunate enough that I married a chiropractor, so I'm taken care of on a regular basis. But yeah, it definitely.
So that's the secret. Marry a chiropractor.
It's my secret. At least. It's working for me so far. Yeah.
So what kind of woodworking are we doing?
Purely YouTube educated, DIY hobbyist. Any piece of furniture that I felt like I needed or my wife, Brooke, has requested of me, I figured out how to make it and just went from there. So,
okay, give me a couple examples.
Yeah, so I made a TV stand for myself when I was a bachelor. I made a coffee table, a bench that I put at the edge of the foot of my bed to like sit on and put shoes on and stuff, that kind of thing. Blanket ladders. I'm working currently on a couple cigar ashtrays for some buddies of mine.
Nice.
as a thank you gift or just a cool gift in general.
Do you have a lathe for those?
I do not have a lathe.
Okay.
It's a different way of doing so with basic woodworking tools that I found again on YouTube, because that's typically where most of those ideas are figuring out comes from for me. So using an angle grinder for the most part to get that divot or that bowl piece in there. So it's a lot more tedious. Definitely a better way to do that, but I don't have a lathe, and that's my solution to that problem.
They're expensive. I don't have one either.
Yeah, 100%. My
dad.
dad.
That's the next shop.
Yeah, exactly right. That's the dream shop. So my dad has a lathe. That's where I got this, I guess, desire to make stuff and work with wood. He's a very good craftsman. He made a bunch of furniture like trundle beds for my sisters when they were young, rocking chairs out of a native really cool species of wood when we lived in Hawaii. A lot of different cool things that just took a lot more time, and I was somewhere in the vicinity watching him do that, and that's kind of like one of the things that we did to spend time together as I was younger and still do so. But those are some of the immediate examples of stuff that I've made so far.
How old were you in Hawaii?
I want to say like 8 or 9.
Okay.
I was
military?
Yeah, exactly right. So he was Air Force, active duty Air Force for 20 years. So home was, different every 3 years. But we lived on Oahu, right across the bay from Pearl Harbor, for some time, and then base housing for the greater part of my life. And he retired in 2009, I believe. Right before we moved to Chesapeake, where my folks live currently, and that was when this is where they've lived the longest. Everything else was 3-year increments at a time. So
Did he fly planes in the Air Force?
He did not. He was a lieutenant colonel. He did a lot of office-based work. He was in charge of a lot of different teams. He would travel a lot of stuff. So he was more, as far as he started off as a in the missile squadron in Minot, North Dakota. So he was underneath ground, like he was doing that kind of stuff with the nukes and all that stuff up there. And then he was I think communications officer was his official title, if I'm not mistaken, but a lot more corporate military, if that makes sense. That's what I perceived it to be when I was little, walking around, like seeing where Dad worked and stuff. That was what I understood it to be. But yeah, that's where it came from. So those are the couple of projects that I've made.
Do you have like a garage or a shed or
yes,
a shop?
I have a humble 2-car garage right now in the townhome that we live in. So it has enough room for a small little home gym and most of the other tools that I use in whatever capacity I have.
Hey, that's where it starts, man.
Yeah, I know enough and have enough to be dangerous.
Apple
I'll put it
started
that way.
in a garage.
Exactly right. Exactly
so did
right.
Harley. So
100%.
Just keep at it, man. Yeah.
Keep hammering like Cam Han.
Exactly.
Says, yep.
Yeah. There's a never-ending drive to just like build stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. Especially carpentry.
Just that initial gratification is a big one for me. Obviously, I do that professionally in my line of work, but in another pastime, therapy, if you will, that's one of the ways I just love keeping myself occupied and not just vegging out and doing nothing, because I can't do that for very long at all.
Yeah, for me, it's like I love to veg out and do nothing, but also while I'm vegging out and doing nothing, I'll just get a light bulb.
Yeah.
And I'll just grab the sketch pad and I'll be like,
just start going. Yeah.
And then it's a matter of like, okay, let's go make a really crappy version of this out of the scrap wood that's sitting in my shop.
That's how most of it starts.
See like if it's worth it. And then we'll be like, okay, let's go.
Then I'll invest in the hardwood or the materials that I want to actually make.
Let's go get some sanded plywood
100%.
and really do this. Yeah, because I just have so much scrap wood sitting around. Like,
that's definitely
like this printer stand. This is version 2.
I was looking at that actually.
But like that's just like some scrap wood. Even that is version 2 out of scrap wood, but it's still like it looks very nice because I made a crappy one out of crappier wood.
100%.
Yeah, so 100%. It's just a matter of the versions I find really help, because every time that I've tried to make the final awesome one the first time, it's never good. Yeah. But when I'm like, okay, let's just build a really crappy one out of some crappy wood that no one wants to look at. We're not even going to paint it. We're just going to finish it and see if it functions.
It's going to be the prototype. We're going to see if
and then you're like, okay,
this
is way nicer than I thought. Let's just do this again, but out of better wood.
100%. 100%. Yeah. What type of stuff do you typically like to make?
So professionally, I'll do anything made to order. My favorite things, though, are just utilitarian.
Gotcha.
And it can be anything from, again, like that printer stand was like one of those things where I was like, it's insane that I don't have the ability to store the paper or whatever. The table was like right here. This one was just like in need of the table. A tiny little like holder I have in the living room that sits on the table for like the remote and the like clicker for the light and a little pen. Perfect. Just like
they'll have some kind of function.
Function is where I get the most like drive. I have less. It's there, but I definitely just have a little bit less of like the artistic side of woodworking.
I would agree. I'm
like,
similar in that.
Where it's like like wood sculpture is awesome, and people who sit on lathes and carve bowls.
I don't have the patience for it, me personally. But
I don't know if I have the patience because I've never been on a lathe.
Yeah,
but to me, that's more art.
Yes, 100%.
And it does not like jive in my head the same way. Whereas like the tiny little 4-inch wide shelf that's screwed to the side of a cabinet for the butt of a gun to sit in.
Yeah. Like
that little thing, just like, oh man, like the utilitarianness, and it's sleek and it's small, and I did it in 5 seconds out of scrap wood for free. And like,
for sure.
And the coffee table, like hidden drawer coffee table, and there's a bunch of like little things in my kitchen I've made, like inserts in cabinets to store like the Pyrex lids.
Custom made, you said, made to order.
All custom made, exactly. Yeah. So those are definitely the things that I get the most kick out of making. I've had some clients ask me for some cool stuff. Like this one dude wanted me to make him a oyster shucking table.
Interesting.
So it's basically like a standing height picnic table, but he wanted it to come apart. So like two legs were bound together and the other two legs were bound together. Then you could like take the top off of them. So you like assembled it like upside down. You put the like one set of legs in one side, other set of legs in one side, slide the bolts through, slide the wing nuts on, flip it over. And then it had like two holes in the middle that you put full-size garbage cans underneath.
Right, because it's messy to shuck oysters.
Yeah, and then it had a lip on the outside. So then you just like literally take the giant thing of boiling hot oysters and you just like dump it on this table and people stand around it.
It's like a crab boil table,
Yeah, exactly.
Love it. Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah. So he had me make two of those, one to use and one to give away.
Okay.
Nice. For like a birthday party.
Cool.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But tables, I make a lot of tables.
Nice.
Yeah, farm tables.
Very cool.
Yeah, just anything utilitarian. Like
if it enhances your home, or,
if it enhances organization in any way, I am just like, oh my God. Like even the simplest thing, like an existing drawer and then just like screwing a piece of wood in the middle to create a divider. Yeah. Just to be, okay, we're going to put stuff on that left and stuff on the right. Like it just like something that simple to me. Like, oh yeah. You do that combined with a label maker and like I'm in heaven. Yeah, I'm dorking out all day. 100%, so like 100%. That's But and that's definitely rubbed off on like the work that I do as a general contractor.
That was my next question. Yeah, it's like how does that transfer?
It definitely transfers because the meticulous nature of me, it works out that stuff doesn't get missed. Yep. And like nobody's perfect, and I'm not any different.
Sure.
But less things get missed and more little things that I would think about because I would be the type of demographic who would be renting a property from us. So when we gut a property and then we fix it back to new and we rent it out, my mom and dad are my business partners, but they're in their 70s. Okay. They don't know what it's like to rent a house anymore. They haven't been doing that for 50 plus years. Right. They're genius architects, and I would be nowhere without their ability to design these houses with me. But they don't think about the things like I don't think about the things they think about, and they don't think about the things I think about. That's why it's a great team. But like, I'm the one who's thinking like, oh yeah, we don't really need that closet because a family's not going to live here. Right.
You could use that as
that could be better space put somewhere else. Right. Or and that's like some random example. Sure. And then also I am in more direct communication with our tenants. Yep. So like I have actually a friend. She rented a house from me. Her and her roommate Dom. They rented a house from me, and then they watched me build the house next door. And every time something big would happen, they'd be like, "Hey, can we check it out?" I'd be like, "Sure."
Audience right there.
Yeah. And then they literally were like, "So
can you do this for us?" Or something?
No, they were like, "Can we move into that house?" They were renting the house I already own.
Oh shoot! Okay.
I own two rentals next to each other, and they were in the first one after I finished it.
Oh, I see.
And then they're watching me build the one next door.
Okay. Cool.
And I'm even like, "Hey, I need to borrow your hose. I need to borrow your power. Like, here's $10 towards the bill."
Sure.
And I was like, "Yeah, we're going to rent it for X." And they were like, "Well, we can afford that. Can we move in?" And I was like, "Actually, yeah, because your house value has gone up and I'm kind of losing some money. So I could get a tenant in there for more money." And like, it worked out perfectly. But they would also be like, "Hey, by the way, this closet location is the worst. We hit it every time we go in the door." And I was like, that's something that on the blueprint, it looked perfect. But until the house is completely finished,
until you're actually
and somebody moves in with coffee table and kitchen table and desk and whatever, you don't realize it. Sure. And I was like, well, I think I literally like sent a text to my mom and I was like, "Hey, move the closet away from the front door on the next house." Right. Because it was there. And I was like, "Just move it there and we'll have a little hallway and that'll be the wall for the light switch and the mirror and whatever." And and then like just again, some littler things that they might not think of, like, I'm going to be the one to repair the stuff, so the little things that would normally break, the toilet paper roll is going to come loose. Sure. So I'm going to put blocking in the wall before we sheetrock it.
Thinking ahead before,
And if I forget to do blocking, I'm going to use 110-pound test drywall anchors.
Yep, 100%. the couple times I tried to do anything, hanging anything up with the plastic stuff, I'm like, I don't know why anybody thought this is a great idea. I
throw them away from wherever they always come with your product,
yep,
and I throw them away immediately.
They don't even get, the package doesn't even get opened.
No, I might use the screws, but I definitely
I mostly throw it into like the spare random stuff that I want to hoard or keep onto. Right?
You should throw them away.
Yeah,
you should take those 2 screws out and put those in a bucket because there's nothing wrong with those. And you should take those plastic anchors and throw those.
Absolute garbage.
But if I forget about that, sometimes I might just put the towel bars on a stud. Be like, oh, I forgot to put blocking, and they drywalled primer, but I can still see the studs are right there.
Sure.
They're going on the stud. There you go.
It's easy enough.
3.5-inch deck screw.
Yep.
It ain't coming out.
Yeah, exactly.
And then another one that I've said on this podcast a few times, so forgive me for those who are listening on the repeat, but a centralized internet shelf that I don't know why it's not in every house, but either a closet that already has a high shelf with a rod will then, I'll tell the electrician right there, even though it makes no sense initially, I want an outlet on its own circuit breaker, and I want the Ethernet box.
Interesting.
For the coax cable.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then I want him to run that. I want him to put like a wire in there and then run it all the way to wherever direction in the house to where the power comes in.
Right.
Because nowadays, like Spectrum or whoever you're using will run the internet cable along your power line from the pole to pole, and then follow the power line to your house. And so if you already have the hook in there, they can literally just hook that up as plug and play.
Yep.
And if there's no good enough centralized closet, we'll just put a shelf that's above everyone's head.
Yeah.
If it's 8-foot ceilings, it'll be 7 feet, and it'll just be a little, 12-inch by 8-inch piece of plywood with a little bracket. Yeah. It doesn't have to be complicated at all. And just tell the electrician, put an outlet up there. It's just for the router.
Yep.
And then it also makes it easier in the event, like I have a tenant who needed to be hardwired because of their job, and I was like, okay, well, order 2 hide-a-wire things, and we'll go up into the ceiling, through the crawl space, because we spray foam the roof deck, so there's no insulation in the way.
Right.
Run your cable that you're going to buy, and I'll cut and put it down, and it'll come right down the corner of the wall, and it'll be like nice and slick, and we don't have to worry about it. And
bada bing, bada
somebody could use that wire run for anything else if they need. People are working from home more and more, so as long as it's not ugly, and the wire hides like a nice little plastic white thing that has like a plate cover. It's like, who cares?
It's easy.
It's
easy day.
So then it's still like it's centralized. It's super easy to run a wire from there.
Right.
And so those are definitely examples of where like the utilitarian function of me has translated to the GC side, especially in the niche that we're doing of buying these houses and flipping these houses.
Yep. Excellent.
So I think I like to think it works out for sure.
Yeah. I'm sure it does.
Yeah.
I'm sure it does.
So before we wrap up, if anybody's listening and they are willing to drive to Raleigh, which is not that far at all, how would they get in touch with you to, I'm assuming there's phone consultation and then you schedule an appointment?
Yeah, absolutely. So our office or our clinic is called Liberty Chiropractic Institute. We're in, again, the Northwest Raleigh area, right down Glenwood. So if you're in the general vicinity in Durham, you're kind of a straight shot down that way.
It's like 25 minutes.
Yeah, it's super easy drive depending on where you're at. But yeah, it's that's the website, Liberty Chiro, Chiro Institute spelled out.com. That has all our office phone number.
LCI.com was just taken.
Something like that. I know. We probably will abbreviate to that because it gets to be a pain to type out every time. But anyway, yeah, you can easily find our website there. It has all our other contact information. All those phone calls get forwarded to my personal cell, so you can easily get in contact with me that way.
Nice.
Social media, we have an office, Instagram and Facebook of the same name, Liberty Chiro Institute. We have a Dog Tour Mav is his title on social as well. Maverick has a presence there as well.
Very cool. Did you name him after the movie?
Top Gun. Yeah, that's when the second one came out. We had lost the other dog that we had before, and we just got him right after we saw the one in theaters. So yeah, that's 100% where it came from. Love Top Gun.
There's no shame. It was a great movie.
Yep.
Arguably better than the first movie.
I wouldn't disagree necessarily. They're both great.
I made my girlfriend watch the first movie not very long ago.
Yep.
And I was like, yeah, now we got to watch the second one. And she was like, no, I don't really want to. That wasn't that good. And I was like, but the second movie is actually very good. Like the first movie is very like terrible. It's a little like
it's a classic.
Predatory in the beginning there, and like stalkery. It's a little. It's not. Doesn't
definitely
age
a different
well.
time for sure.
It does not age well.
Definitely a a more modern societally, I guess, well-made movie. 100% agree.
Yeah, the second one was just like, oh, we love planes.
Right. We love planes. Cool guy shots, like military booyah. Like that's absolutely.
Yeah, it was basically just like Navy pilot infomercial.
Yep, 100%.
But it was
100%. Absolutely. Yeah, that's the easiest places you can find us for sure.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. And as always, check out the Orange Hammer podcast on all the social medias, CRS Contracting as well, and email and phone number, corb@wscg.com and 845-489-6057. And if you're enjoying the podcast, I found out recently that 5-star reviews will help people who don't know about the podcast find it. So do me a favor, throw on Apple or Spotify or wherever you're getting this. I really appreciate it. Matt, thank you so much for coming, man. I really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure.
Have a good one, everybody.